My son played football in the 7th grade. And what that means is all the 7th graders practice before school. That is a 6 a.m. wake-up call, and I am not a morning person. My husband usually took him to practice, but one day was my turn, which meant I am up and we are dropping him off at the school, and I am home in the black of night. And when I got home, I just had this random idea that since I'm already awake, I should watch the sunrise. So I grabbed a camping chair and popped it up in an empty lot in the neighborhood that was facing east, and I waited. And the first thing I noticed was a thin pink line, like someone had taken a fine tip marker and just drawn a line across the base of the clouds in the sky. And slowly that pink began to expand and brighten, and then the clouds looked like cotton candy. That pink warmed up into an orange, and then to yellow, and then here comes the white, hot sun, and night is over, day has come, and it was like a spectacular slow motion sunrise. And I thought, this is amazing. This happens every day, and I sleep through it. Like, that's a travesty. But I just felt so grateful for the light that had broken through my darkness. And I soaked up the sunrise that morning. When I headed back to the house, I had this little thought, don't forget the darkness. And I just thought, well, that's kind of strange. Why would I want to remember the darkness? But I went home and I found a journal that I had written in when we were walking through the betrayal. And our family was at the beach. I was up early before the boys, and I thought, maybe I'll grab my flip-flops and just go for a walk. But I wrote in that journal that wasn't safe for me. And the thought crossed my mind to just walk out into the waves and not turn around. I already felt like I was drowning in despair. I was so hopeless and felt so helpless. I read that journal, and honestly, I had completely forgotten the depth of my despair. I was shocked to think those were the thoughts that were going through my mind. And I do think it's important that we remember those dark days, because I think when we forget them, it just seems too easy, and we trivialize how difficult and challenging it is to come into the light. It took years for me to see that hope like a thin pink line. And maybe it was there all along and I just didn't notice, or maybe I wasn't looking in the right direction. But I want to tell you today where I saw hope. And one of the first places I saw hope was in my faith and in the Bible. And the Psalms are a wonderful place to go when you're dealing with difficulty and pain and emotion. And they're written by a man who experienced both sides of betrayal. He had an affair with another man's wife, and he was betrayed by many people in his life, and he gets it. So Psalm 27:13 says, I would have despaired unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And I read that verse and just thought, there is still good for me. There's still good for my life. And regardless of what happens in my relationship and my marriage, somehow I am going to choose to believe that I will see God's goodness in my life. Another place I saw hope was in another woman's story. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I'm making these video blogs. It was so important in my journey. And there were days I told myself, I can't do this. I don't think I can make it. I'm not sure we're going to make it through this. But I had a friend who was courageous enough to open up and tell me how she and her husband made it through betrayal. And I had the courage to believe if she can make it, if they can make it, then maybe we can make it too. I also found hope in my friendships. There weren't a lot of people who knew what was going on in our lives when we were in the thick of it, but there were 3 women that carried me through that season. My dear friend Lexi watched our boys so we could go to EMS, and I remember coming home and sitting on her sofa, and she would just listen and hand me tissues, like hand me lots of tissues and let me cry. And she was such a gift to me in that season. When I went to work, my coworker Anita would say, "Come on, let's just go for a walk." And we would walk around the parking lot, and she helped me unpack the emotions of what we were facing. And then there was Pastor Kelly. I would call her and text her, and I remember like calling her and thinking, she's looking at her phone going, "Oh no, it's Lynn Cherry again." But she kept answering my calls, and she helped me to not go back to those old familiar coping strategies. Those 3 girls, like, I don't know where I'd be without those 3 friends. They kept me moving forward. They gave me courage when I had none of my own. And the other place I saw hope was in the programs and the people of Affair Recovery. They know the path to freedom because they've helped thousands of couples, and they've walked the path themselves. If you are sitting in the darkness of despair, I want to challenge you to wake up tomorrow morning, set your alarm, watch the sunrise. Every day, the sun rises. Every day we have this brilliant, beautiful reminder that hope rises in the darkest places. Hope rises and darkness loses to light.